Okay, we need to talk about the difference between the words could and did. These are words that people seem to be getting confused quite a bit as of late. And to elaborate, I'm going to use a completely hypothetical example, such as the president could declare martial law and the president did declare martial law. The president could cancel elections. The president did cancel elections. These simple terms seem to be getting incredibly confused by people, and I feel as you can tell, burning desire to talk about it. This is because, frankly, people have been obsessing with this at every opportunity, and no offense, alarmism is a thing. And it is based on those two words. When you say something could happen, it is not alarmism. You are warning against a possibility and saying we should avoid this course of action to prevent it. When you say it did happen when it didn't, you are being defeatist at best, and at worst, actively intentionally engaging in self-sabotage in order to justify your own emotions rather than going to therapy. So, how can I elaborate on this? Donald Trump was elected in 2016. He assumed the office January of 2017. Since then, at least once every 2 months, a mass outpouring from, I will loosely describe as the internet left, but because they are the most vocal portion of the left, I have no choice but to refer to them as the left, has referred to, frankly, everything Trump has done, at least one in every 2 news articles as, this is the end. So, to give you an idea, I went back and I pulled up some old articles back when Donald Trump attempted to implement the Muslim ban, which I will point out did get overturned because he was such a moron. The comments on that were, this is how it begins. This is fascism in America now. We've hit peak fascism. Was an actual comment I found. I don't know what I'm doing for this video, given the fact this is just kind of raw stream of conscience stuff. We'll see if I put in edited graphics or who knows. But, yeah, that was peak fascism. And I will now go back from the most current issue, which is Donald Trump threatening to, I can't think of the correct term, activate the Insurgency Act of 1807, which would merely let him nationalize the police to use on, I believe he'd be limited to federal land not currently in a U.S. state, which based off of the Corpus Patasi Act, I don't know, there's a C and a P in it, but basically the act that says he can't put troops in states unless the governors let him, and police can't work as law enforcement. And I believe the D.C. Home Rule Act extends this to D.C., so he's basically patrolling the Smithsonian with the entirety of the Department of Defense. The response has been, this is it, America is over, fascism has begun. Now, this is not in and of itself an overreaction when you use the word could. Because keep in mind, he hasn't even used the act yet. There's a chance he could, but he hasn't. By saying could, you're warning against something and heeding we should prevent the action from occurring. By saying did, you're saying it's all over. And we've lost, which isn't the case, and gives people, and tunes people out to the possible threat of the could. Then you go back literally a day to when Donald Trump said he was considering marking Antifa as a terrorist group. Some people said he could do this in order to, attack innocent protesters, but it would require him jumping over multiple legal hurdles that it is unlikely he can or is willing to, which is the more key part with the Trump administration, do. That hasn't stopped people from saying he did do that. He did not. He has not done that. He has not even taken the action. But by acting like the threat has already happened, you are inherently kneecapping yourself. It's like when you get into a race, starting off a race with another person and saying, they are 5 meters ahead of me. I'll assume it's a 100-meter dash. As opposed to, they could be 5 meters ahead of me, in which case I should not let that happen. Let's go back another jump, which was to... I'll skip over all of the coronavirus stuff, because I'm going to point out early on people were saying how Trump was going to use coronavirus as his Reichstag fire, and then when the protests were happening, saying Donald Trump has created an armed insurrection against the United States, when he didn't. These were just assholes with guns protesting. So we'll go back to when everyone was saying Donald Trump was going to nuke Iran, when he didn't, and how it was going to be World War III, and he'd declare martial law, and he'd cancel elections. Oh, and I missed one. The Postal Service, when this was clearly an elaborate 5D chess plan to defund the Postal Service so they couldn't do vote by mail in the upcoming election, despite the fact that that's not what would have happened, and no one was saying it would have happened. It would have just put the post office in a bind, and they'd have to lay some people off, not cancel letters as they exist. Or we go before that to time starts to become a blur because everything feels like an eternity. Keep in mind, we are less than 3 months out from Super Tuesday. That's weird, right? We are only like 6 weeks, or 10 weeks out. That's weird to think that, like, 10 weeks ago, people thought Pete Buttigieg had a chance of becoming president. That's weird, right? Anyway, look. You have, so, could and did. You go back further, you have the Muslim ban. You have when he declared a national emergency about his border wall. You have, he's not gonna let the midterms happen! And people saying people acting like he did cancel elections or did call martial law when he didn't do those things. All people are doing is, and I say this as a person who is not going to pretend like I know what people are thinking, but I'm going to make the best guess. All of this stuff spreads anxiety. Anxiety is scary. That's what anxiety is. It is your innate evolutionary urge to go, this is bad. This is scary. I don't know what to do, and it's very easy to feel like events are out of control. But, and this is where it's key, the correct response to that anxiety is to not immediately go into a public venue and talk about how scared you are. Maybe in private, reaching out to someone who you're close to, who doesn't feed off your anxiety or make it worse. Or just taking some time to yourself to calm down, or reading more on the issue. That is what you do. Oh, and if you recall around Iran, everyone was talking about how we're going to implement the draft again, or how the draft had been implemented. I remembered people saying, he has done this. That's the thing. In hindsight, when it didn't happen, it looks so ridiculous. But right now, I'm seeing people post about how Donald Trump has already done things he didn't do. If Donald Trump did what people are saying he did do, or what they should be saying he could do, right now, I would have been shot in the back of the head by a Gestapo officer parading as an ICE agent, claiming to seize all my money to create a border wall in order to keep Muslims out that he's put in camps. And yes, the border camps are actually a problem. Those were just two unfortunate things which were connected. But also, I'm sorry guys, but the camps at the border did not start gassing people. They are terrible, horrible things which should not exist. But because people overreacted, when they didn't immediately turn into death camps, like some people called them, people lost interest. this overreaction desensitizes. So, if you are feeling anxiety at something and something freaks you out, the first thing you should do, turn off the computer, turn off the news source for an hour. Unless you're going to read more about it, in which case read more about it, then turn it off for an hour, breathe, read, play a game, do something that isn't this. Hell, cry into a pillow, scream, I don't care, whatever makes you feel better, do it. And then come back. And the way people are reacting will look a lot more ridiculous, and you can feel a lot safer. The could becomes did when people take the feelings of anxiety and attempt to match reality to what they're feeling. That is what many Trump supporters do. They feel crime is up, so they are afraid of crime, and they feel like there's more crime, so they say there is more crime, as opposed to crime is falling down. Same thing with this. Donald Trump has not declared martial law. Donald Trump has not declared Antifa even a terrorist organization before we look at the possible cascading steps, and I'm going to be honest, I don't think he's thought that far. I think this is a man who just throws red meat to his base, and if you look at everything he does, is entirely self-aggrandizing, so I think he's just going to keep saying he's going to do shit when he doesn't. Because, let's be honest, this man is not clever. He's not smart. He's not going to all of a sudden be a tactical genius on the level of, I don't know, who's someone abysmal, Stalin or Heinrich Himmler. He is going to, in complete honesty, do whatever makes him feel good and feel like people like him. He feels like he's a strong boy when he says he's going to send the military on the protesters. He's not going to actually do it. And if he does, oops, that's a bad prediction, and I will probably make a follow-up, I hope. But the thesis here is could versus did. If it is could, everything is could until it happens. And when you say Donald Trump could use the Declaration of Antifa plus the Insubordination Act with Insurgency Act to, conduct a mass crackdown on everyone who disagrees with him and potentially end democracy in America. That is a reasonable response. That is warning people. That is the slippery slope, which is not an unreasonable argument, contrary to popular belief. It is when you are arguing the slippery slope exists, when it's unconnected to something else, that there's a problem. And more specifically here, we are looking at a slippery slope argument that is entirely found in reality. If people had this level of response to the Patriot Act, it wouldn't have passed. And frankly, no one right now is dumb enough to cancel elections while people are getting openly violent in protests. That's not how things work. You don't pour gasoline on the fire. Because Donald Trump might be that stupid, but I genuinely have a hard time believing everyone around him, including the governors, including the leaders of the armed forces, are that stupid. Hell, I'd argue Mitch McConnell, in most cases, is not that stupid. But this is what we're left with. You need to make the could argument. The could argument is good and positive and helpful. The did argument is useless and meant to justify your feelings. Do not say did, unless it actually happened. Double check, fact check, and that might be what you need in order to move past this. Always use could until the thing happens. And with that being said, this has been One Man Think Tank. You know the rest of the blurb. Bye-bye. And have a wonderful day. I'd hate to forget to mention that.